Well, good morning, everybody. Let's get started. There might be a few latecomers joining us. Welcome to this webinar, and I hope you're all staying safe through this very difficult time. I know the lockdown's been extended for another 3 weeks, so we're all going to have to put up with another 3 weeks of this. I'm sure we've been coping so far, and we're here to help you. We're still open during this crisis. We have a skeleton team in the office and a lot of people working from home. If you've not been on one of these webinars before, please can you make sure that you're muted, because at the moment there are 43 people on this webinar, and if you've got your sound on, it can just interrupt everybody else. The webinar is being recorded and it will be up on our website and up on our YouTube channel. Now, if you've not visited our YouTube channel before, if you just go to YouTube and search for Harts Limited, that's limited spelt in full, you'll see copies of the 3 previous webinars are on there. You can just access them at any time. This will also be up there later on today, along with the slides. Today we want to give you a very quick update of what's been happening, and we were going to cover the job retention scheme, self-employed support, the business interruption loan and the grants, but then we just want to open it up to questions and answers. So our panel today is myself, I'm Stephen Glicher. You've got Chris Bentley, who's Tax Director at Harts, and we've got Emma Fay from the HR department, and they're here to answer all your questions of anything you might want to ask about the government support, furlough scheme, grants, self-employed support and so on. So please feel free to ask those questions. We do have the use of the chat box, and you'll see a speech bubble on your screen. If you click into that, you can just type in your questions and we can go through those at the end. We do have a number of questions which have been emailed in already, and again, we'll cover those off as well. It's very much down to you as to how you want to use this session. A lot of questions generally get asked about the support, and so we find it's very useful for you just to use this time to ask. So let's move on to the first point on the job retention scheme. An update came out 2 days ago, which basically changed the date from which you are allowed to claim the grant for furloughed employees. Originally, they were saying anyone on the payroll as at the 28th of February. This has now been extended up to 19th of March. However, the announcement isn't as generous as first thought. What they're actually saying is the employee has to be on the payroll as at the 19th of March, but they also have to have had an RTI. They also have to be reported to the Inland Revenue as being paid through the company through the RTI system by the 19th of March. So we believe at this stage it still catches out a number of people. So if you started somebody on, say, the 5th of March, but your payday wasn't until the end of March, unfortunately, it doesn't look like they'll be able to claim. It all depends on the date the RTI was submitted. So if you had somebody who was started on the 3rd of March and the payday was, say, the 15th of March, then you would be able to claim a grant for them. It does seem a little strange that they haven't extended this to anyone who was on your payroll at that point, but that's the latest guidance which has actually come out. One thing which we wanted to cover briefly as well is that if you find your income is going down, it may well be that you're entitled to claim child benefit. As you're aware, you cannot claim child benefit if your income is above £60,000, and it's kind of tapered between 50 and 60. But it may well be that your income has actually gone down to below the £60,000 or even the £50,000 initial threshold, so you may become entitled to claim child benefit. You can only go back and claim 3 months retrospectively. So we suggest you do look at your own personal circumstances, and it may well be that you're looking to claim child benefit for the current year. Even if you do decide to start claiming it now and you find you've been overpaid, when your self-assessment return is completed, then you will just end up having to repay it. But it's worth looking at your own personal circumstances to see whether you can actually start to claim child benefit as a result of a reduction in your income. Those are the main couple of points on the job retention scheme. Moving on to the self-employed support scheme. The government, the HMRC, have issued the basis on which to calculate the support which you're entitled to. So, and they've actually issued a number of worked examples in here as well. So they work out your trading profits, and you knock off the usual expenses, office costs, travel costs, and so on. And you're also entitled to deduct capital allowances, and so on to get to your usual trading profits. So it looks like the trading profits are calculated in much the usual way. You're not allowed to deduct any losses carried forward from a previous year. So we're purely looking on the trading profit. And then you're looking at the average annual profit over the last 3 years. And if that's below the £50,000 threshold, then you're entitled to claim the grant. So they've given a number of examples here, and there's one or two interesting ones for it. So for instance, if you've got a 60,000 profit in year 1, 60,000 profit in year 2, and a £30,000 loss in the third year, effectively you've got 60 plus 60 minus 30, which gives you a 90,000, divided by 3 gives you 30,000. So you are entitled to the self-employed support, even though your profits were above 60,000 for 2 out of the 3 years. You're looking at your total income as well, so you have to make sure that your self-employed income is more than half of your total income, and your total income includes all your income from earnings, profits, property, dividends, savings, pension, and any other miscellaneous income that you might have. So that you have to use that for the calculation as well. So if you wanted to just go online and have a look and see how that affects you, you just need to go to the HMR website, and we can actually provide you with the link for that. And that's just one worked example of how that is actually going to happen. HMRC should be coming back to you because they're going to identify those people who are affected by this and come back to you to say whether you're eligible to claim or not. Let's wait and see what happens with that. Thirdly, let's have a quick look at the business interruption loan. There has been a number of issues raised in the press recently about how the banks are not giving out the loans, or they're making it difficult for you to actually get the loans. We've had an update basically from mortgage brokers and finance brokers, and a couple of issues have come out of this. Basically, they're saying that the panel of 40 lenders on there is actually growing all the time. And if you can't get to your offer from your existing bank, you may be able to start approaching other banks. However, they always suggest going to your existing bank first. Interest rates should be reasonable at this stage. They are still offering reasonable interest rates, but if you then go to a more specialist lender, you're talking about paying interest rates of between 12 and 14%. So those interest rates are going sky high at the moment. Interestingly enough, there are issues on valuations. So normal commercial lending is still available to you. They are processing that as normal. But the problem is getting valuations. So if you're using property as security under normal rules, a lot of the valuers are not available because they can't get out there to do the valuations. And also there's difficulty now in valuing properties based on what's going on at the moment. The lenders are still open, and you can secure normal loans on over 15 to 25 years at a lower rate, whereas the government support loans are over only 6 years. So you might want to look to see if you can raise funding on the normal terms rather than the civil loan first. And if you can't, then go for that rate. It's also worth noting that most businesses have what's called a shadow limit, and that's basically a pre-authorized lending limit, and most businesses will have that. So it's worthwhile asking your lender to ask them, what is your shadow limit, please, because that's something that effectively you could ask for as part of the civil loan without having to go through enormous processes. So it's well worth asking what that's all about. Asset finance is still available out there. Residential lending is out there, but the loan to value rates are actually dropping. So in most cases now, they will look at a 65% loan to value on residential properties, and they tend to be closed above 75% loan to value. And again, valuations are becoming an issue, because how do you value property with everything just at the moment? So there are a number of issues in relation to that, and it's well worth exploring those out there. There is still plenty of funding out there, plenty of funding lines still available. Worst case scenario, you could always just go for a personal loan, and there's plenty of those around, and at reasonable rates as well. You can get one for up to 20,000, say over 8 years, and typical interest rates might be between 3.5% and 7%. So nothing too dramatic. Whereas if you go to a specialist lender on those personal terms, it could be between 6.5% and 12%. So there is a lot happening on the business interruption loan side of things. Well worth getting your application in quickly, because the banks are inundated with these as well. But again, you will need, if you're going for a civil loan, you will need cash flow forecasts, profit projections, accounts, and so on. It is something that we can help you with, just to be aware of that. The final point is in relation to grants. Not much has changed here, and we are seeing that people are getting grants through now. A number of our clients have received the £10,000 grants, and they are available. What you need to do is, if you don't normally pay small business rates, and because you get small business rate relief, you need to apply to the local authority, because they may not have your banking details. And if you go onto your local authority website, they should be able to, there should be a form on there which you can actually fill in and claim your grant back. So get on with doing that. The local authorities do have the money. It's there waiting to be distributed, but again, they're going to be suffering with the restrictions that we all have, in that their ability to make these payments to everybody is hit on the basis they don't have the same amount of staff available. In essence, that is pretty much what we've got on our job retention scheme and the self-employed support, the interruption loan, and grants. What I'd like to do is open it up to our panel, and that's my ugly mug in the middle, and you can see Chris Bentley and Emma Fay are here to help you as well. Now, I'm just going to, bear with me 1 second, and I'm going to unmute the people that need to be unmuted. That's fine. We have a number of questions that have come in already, and if I start with the first one, which is, Harts do my payroll. Do I need to register on the portal when it comes live on Monday, or will Harts do this for me? Basically, the job retention scheme is coming live on the 20th. The portal is coming live next week on the 20th. The revenue have said that they will be inundated, and they will probably not have enough people on, or their system will be overloaded, basically. We will be doing this for you. We have sent out a form to you all by email. If you've not received that, please come back to us. We've asked for details which we need to get you registered. As long as we hold a pay-as-you-earn, as long as we are down as your pay-as-you-earn agents, then we are okay. We can actually do this for you. And do we know if we can claim in advance? As I have a couple of employees that have been furloughed since the 24th of March and will be ongoing certainly for the next 6 weeks. Emma, could I ask you to answer that one for us, please?
Yeah, so we believe you can claim in advance. I think it's 14 days in advance of your payroll. So you're just going to basically claim in line with your normal payroll. We understand it. So if you do a monthly payroll, you put your claim in either at the time you run the payroll or before. Say what your pay period is. There's a long list of information that came out 2 days ago. I think it was the same day that they announced this new date of the 19th of March. There's a big list of information that you're going to need to provide in submitting a claim. And if you've got under 100 employees, you're going to have to submit individual details of each staff member. So yes, you can claim in advance. That's how I understand it.
Okay, great. Next question. I have an employee who left our company on the 7th of March. Her new employer didn't put her on their payroll until the 29th of March, even though she started on the 16th. And so they cannot furlough her. Can I re-employ her temporarily and furlough her? Again, that's one for you, Emma, I think.
Yeah, so you can do is the answer to that. The longer answer is I would think carefully about it. Whilst it's obviously in the employee's benefit for you to do that because they then benefit from those subsidised wages, you are taking back on that liability for that person under employment law. So they're not just a name on your payroll, they are an employee again. So what we're not clear about is what happens at the end of the furlough scheme. We don't know if that's a redundancy or whether, because if the employee then decides, well, actually, I don't want to hand my notice in anymore, we don't know what position we're going to be in. Is that going to be a dismissal, in which case, as an employer, you're open up to your usual risks of unfair dismissal and potentially redundancy pay. Plus, for any period that you do have them on your payroll just on furlough, they are going to accrue holidays as well. So there are little costs in there and potential liabilities. So I'd just say think about it on a case-by-case basis. Make sure you know who it is that you're doing it for.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Next question that we have, and I'll get Chris, if you can answer this one. It's Martin Lewis on his ITV show last night referred to one-man limited company directors being possibly able to claim 80% furlough and also set up and carry out trade at the same time through self-employment. What's your view on this, Chris?
My view on this is that it would be a very dangerous course of action to take. It might be strictly within the letter of the furlough scheme rules. However, it is akin to a tax scheme in that what you're doing is you're saying, I can't claim anything, but I'm just going to change my business for no commercial reason other than to make myself able to claim. Now, there is quite a lot of anti-avoidance legislation, and the expectation is that the furlough scheme rules will end up somewhere within the body of tax legislation. I would expect the revenue to try and clamp down on that sort of behaviour quite hard, potentially even using things like the general anti-abuse rule, which has historically only been used for schemes. So I think before anyone does that, think very, very hard. It would be it's a high risk course of action.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Next question. This again is one for Emma. I've been contacted by the staff and they have asked me what the difference is between compulsory commission payments and commission payments. On the HMRC website, it says that you can claim for compulsory commission but not commission payments.
So compulsory commission, we're taking it to mean the same thing as contractual commission. So if it's written into the contract of employment and employees effectively are receiving a commission every month alongside their normal wages, that falls in line with the scheme. We understand you're going to be able to claim that back. If it's not in the contract, real discretionary benefit, then probably not.
And can we just touch on overtime? Because I know we've had this discussion as well. We know have a number of clients that do get regular overtime and then they might get irregular overtime. And what's the position with that?
Yeah, so similar principle really. So if you've got an employee who regularly works overtime, so it's expected both ways. So the employer expects the employee to do the overtime and the employee would be quite shocked if they didn't get the overtime. That should be included in your claim, because it forms part of the regular wages and it's almost become a contractual time, even if it's not explicitly written in there. If it's real sporadic overtime, as in it's if someone's off sick or it's to cover holidays or to cover a couple of hours here and there, then leave it out. It's not regular overtime in that case.
Okay, and then just touching on a similar thing as well, I know we've been asked this a number of times, especially since we've just had a bank holiday as well, is how holidays and certainly bank holidays interact with the furlough scheme as well. And it's a tricky one, this, I believe.
It is. It's surprising, especially given the timing of the Easter weekend. The guidance is still completely silent. There's not a single mention of holiday within the guidance. ACAS have put some guidance out there, but we're cautious because it's not ACAS's scheme, it's HMRC's scheme. So we're not fully sure how to handle holidays, as in we don't know if putting someone on holiday would break a period of furlough, because we know furlough has to go on for 3 weeks as a minimum. So what we don't want to do is end up with clients putting staff on holiday for the Easter weekend, for example, and actually that being a case where, well, you've broken furlough, therefore you're not eligible to claim for the 3-week period. So a way around that, what we're suggesting is, just to be completely on the safe side, is run your 3 weeks furlough, bring your staff off furlough, put them on holiday for those 2 days. So effectively what would have been Good Friday and Easter Monday, pay them at 100% as you normally would for those 2 days, and put them back on furlough. Then you're not breaking anything. There is differing opinions on it. There is, so you could find loads of different answers from different lawyers and HR people, some of whom are saying that you can be on holiday and furlough at the same time. Some are saying you can pay holidays at 80%. Others are saying, no, you can't, you must pay at 100%. So it is all opinion, and we're just kind of going with the safest route because we don't want to be jeopardising any potential claims that our clients are trying to put through.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm moving on to the questions now which have come through in the chat box. Child benefit, is that the total income of both parents? No, it's on a per parent basis. If one parent goes above the 60,000, then you don't get any child benefit at all. But so it's one of those cliff edge tax reliefs, in as much as you could have 2 parents earning 49,000 and you can get full child benefit. You could have 1 parent earning nothing and 1 earning 61,000 and you wouldn't get child benefit. It's unfortunately the way the system works. A question as well, self-employed support, in relation to self-employed support, husband and wife have formed a partnership. Is the income assessed as individuals or total for the business? Chris, do you want to come back on that one?
Yes, I can do. In that case, it's some good news for you. The income is actually assessed on each individual. So when we've done tax returns in the past, there will have been a partnership tax return that covers and states to the revenue the total income for the business, but it also includes a statement that shows how it's split between you as individuals. And because it's split between you as individuals and only a portion of the income goes on each of your individual tax returns, that means that you're much more likely to fall into the category where you can claim under the self-employed scheme because your income is sufficiently low.
Great, thank you. Next one, when the portal opens on the 20th, do we claim the amount from the date they are furloughed up to the 17th of April, or can we claim in advance as well up to the 30th of April? Over to you, Emma.
We believe you're just going to claim for that pay period. So whatever your pay period runs from and to, that's going to be your claim period, unless you furloughed someone on the 1st of March, for example, and you need to backdate a claim. You can obviously, your first submission might be a longer claim period than your future ones, but we don't believe you can claim in advance.
Okay. Another question is, can you work while claiming self-employed support? Yes, you can. That's one of the differences between the job retention scheme, where you are furloughed and you can't work, but if you are self-employed and your profits are below the 50,000, you can still claim the grant and you can still work. Hence the reason for why we had the Martin Lewis question earlier on. Next question. On the business interruption loan, when does the 12 months start from? Is it the date of the loan being granted, or when the money is drawn down, or from the date the business has experienced the hardship? It's a good question. My understanding would be the loan will be whenever your loan starts from, presumably whenever you draw down the loan. But we can get clarification on that, certainly. Next question is, do we know how long the furlough scheme is open for, and is there an end date? Emma?
Yep, it's set to end on the 31st of May, sorry, I keep saying that, 31st of May at the minute, so it's running for 3 months from the 1st of March. I did have a question earlier today, actually, which was a misunderstanding that people were thinking it was 3 months from the day they furlough someone, and that's not the case. It's set currently to end on the 31st of May. The government have said they'll extend it if needed, but that's not been announced at this point.
Okay. And how does the employer's £4,000 employer's allowance come into play when calculating your furlough claim? Chris?
Oh, it's an interesting one, this one, and it's not something I'd previously considered, and I don't think there's anything in the guidance at the moment. However, the way the claim works is that you claim the 80% of the employee's salary plus the employer's NIC plus their statutory minimum pension contributions. Now, the employer's 4K allowance will come off the NICs that you're claiming. So my gut feeling is that the employment allowance will be deducted off the amount that the revenue pays you an employer's NIC. So they're not going to give you an amount for you to pay back in tax plus another 4,000. I think they'll probably deduct one off the other, but it's a very good question, and there's not actually any guidance out there yet.
Great, thank you for that. Next question. At the moment, this is the last question we've got, so if anybody else wants to ask one, please feel free just to butt in or just unmute yourself. Do we know what notice we have to give to our employees who are furloughed when we want them to come back to work?
There is no notice. Yeah, no notice. The idea with furlough is that they remain available for work. So obviously we know that the minimum furlough period for the scheme purposes is 3 weeks, but we've actually had clients who after 2 weeks have had to bring people back. So it means they can't claim the money, but it's tough. They just need the people back in. You don't have to give any notice. You could literally ring someone up and say, right, you need to come back in tomorrow. There shouldn't be any problem with that because it's part of the furlough agreement, which should be in a contract form in writing, that they remain available for work.
Okay, thank you. Before we do go any further, just can I give you a bit of just a quick disclaimer. Please note that the information shared in this presentation is a summary of the government updates as of today's date, 17th of April 2020, and it shouldn't be read advice. For specific professional advice, please contact us at Harts Accountants. We have to read that out. Next question.
2 more queries, Stephen.
Yeah, I know. Next question. Can we not accrue for the bank holidays along with the normal holiday entitlement? Emma?
Yes, yeah, you can do so. You don't have to pay the bank holidays as they arise. You can add it on to the entitlement they're going to get whenever. That's absolutely fine.
Okay. If a director is furloughed, I believe they are allowed to work on statutory requirements. What does this include, and can they watch these webinars? Yes, certainly you can watch these webinars. It won't count as work. Effectively, you can't be doing anything that generates income for your business. So you're entitled to work on the accounts, hold directors' meetings, but you can't do anything that could be deemed to be income generating. So if you're trying to go to web meetings where you're networking or you're updating your website, which potentially could be income generating, you have to be extremely careful from that point of view. So anything non-income generating, you're entitled to do. The next question is, do we know if the HMRC are speeding research and development tax claims through faster than normal? There is an issue we've come across which is a little bit technical, and I'll pass over to Chris in a minute, but basically civils are treated potentially as state aid, and research and development are also treated as state aid. If I can pass over to Chris at this point, because there are issues with this, and it's a bit of a technical one.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you, Stephen. Although there is a technical issue, I think in most cases the issue will go away. Where you've potentially got an issue is where you're obtaining a civils loan specifically for the continuance of an R&D project. If the civils loan is for the business as a whole, the current understanding is that you haven't got a problem. But contact us if you do think you might be having a civils loan relating to a project.
Okay. The specific answer to the question is, do we know if they're processing them any faster than normal?
Oh, sorry, that second one.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any evidence that they are.
No, I was about to say the same thing. We've seen nothing at all to suggest that those are going through any quicker. And in fact, probably most of the resources will be diverted to other areas as well. So it's one of those where it's how long's a piece of string, I'm afraid. Next one is it okay to show this video when it's available to others that may not be Harts clients? Yes, you're more than welcome to. And if you want to ask them to come and have a chat with us, that's fine. This will be on Harts YouTube channel, so you can just point them to that address. It is open to the public. It's not, you don't have to subscribe for it. So feel free to direct anybody there. And if you want them to come and have a chat with us, more than happy to do so. Next question, can we claim for pension contributions if an employee has opted out of auto-enrolment, but pension contributions are being made to a personal pension? Emma, throw that one at you, I'm afraid.
Well, I know that the guidance is it's limited to your legal
enrollment.
Yeah, which is 3%, isn't it?
Yes.
So I would imagine if your contributions to a personal pension don't exceed that, then
from my guidance, I think they're entitled to, from what I've seen, that they get back the 80% plus the employer's NI plus the auto enrolment as well. But if it's not under auto enrolment, I don't believe that they can actually claim that as part of their furlough, because it's not part of the auto enrolment scheme because they have opted out. That's the last question that we've actually had here. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask anything further whilst we're on, please feel free to pick our brains.
Yes, please. Could you just clarify one thing for us? We're a small retail business, obviously not trading. Does HMRC contact us, or do we contact them? And we've been on the Cheshire East website and entered our banking details. So do we just wait for them to contact us now, or do we have to contact them?
No, they should contact you. We've had a number of clients say that they've just looked at their bank accounts and noticed £10,000 has gone in. As a retail business, you might be entitled to some more, depending on your rateable value. But in theory, the money should just come directly through to you.
Okay, yeah. And what about HMRC?
For which?
I know the answer. I know the answer to this one, Steve, and because I know what your business is, Liz. Because you operate as a partnership, your support will come through the self-employed scheme, and as a consequence of that, HMRC will contact you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Next question. Can you please provide more clarity on first furlough claim? If the employees are furloughed on March the 20th, is it for the 3 weeks commencing the 20th of March? And if so, when can the second claim be submitted? Emma.
Well, I believe it's going to fall in line with whatever your pay period is. So regardless of what day they're furloughed, you're going to still pay them on the normal payday. You'll be submitting your claim. What we understand from the latest guidance is you can do it up to 14 days in advance of your payroll running. And that'll be for the period from the 20th of March up to whenever your payroll period is. So it's going to be different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, so effectively, if your payroll period was the 30th of April, and say a lot of people pay out the last day of the month, then they can claim from March the 20th up to the 30th of April. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, that's fine. I hope that answers your query. Any further questions?
How do I calculate the commission? Is it on past payroll? Do I just take the past 3 months, say, and work out an average?
Emma.
Sorry, can you repeat that? It broke up a little bit just as you're asking.
Yes. How do I calculate the commission earned by the staff? Is it on the past 3 months payroll, for instance, then as an average, taken as an average?
Commission, if it varies, then what we're suggesting is use the same calculation that they've set out for variable hours, which is either what they got in this month last year or the average over the 2019-2020 tax year. So look at whichever's higher and use that as the example, because that's what the guidance is for variable hours. If overtime or commission varies, then we'd suggest you use the same.
Thank you.
And then another question on a similar line is, please confirm if we can claim 80% for regularly paid commission if it's in the employment contract. So yes, I would expect you will be able to claim for that. Next question. So the submission on the 20th of April, we can claim up to the 30th of April if we are a monthly, as Emma has said no before. No, it all depends on your pay period. So if your pay period is, if you normally pay on the 30th of April, you will pay up to, you'll make a claim up to the 30th of April. If your pay period is on the 20th of April, so you'll make a payment on the 20th of April to your employees, the claim is up to the 20th of April. Is that correct, Emma? Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Hello. Last month, I carried out the payroll as usual, but the staff were furloughed for the last week of the payroll, but I just paid them as normal. So how do I claim that back when I carry out this month's payroll, that last week of the payroll from March?
Yes, you effectively, the portal will be open next week, and we put in a claim for the first period of the payroll as well as the current period of payroll as well. You continue to pay the staff in the usual way, and as long as they're marked down as furloughed staff, then we can just make the claim through the portal. Anything you want to add on that, Emma?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's absolutely fine, and we expect that first claim for most people is going to be more than one pay period, because a lot of staff were furloughed in early March. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Great. Next question in the chat box is, we have 14 self-employed lads. I understand they can now work and claim a grant. Will HMRC contact them directly, or do they need to make a claim? And will the work they do now affect the amount they receive as a grant in June? The HMRC should contact them depending on what their previous earnings have been. So on the assumption that they're earning an average of less than £50,000 over the last 3 years, and they're entitled to the claim, they can continue to work. And I don't believe it affects the grant they get.
It might do, Stephen. The guidance seems to talk about the people having actually suffered a loss.
Right.
But we haven't any idea how on earth the revenue are going to work that one out. It may well be there's something you have to self-certify when HMRC get in touch with you.
Okay.
Because you can see that the revenue wouldn't want to pay money to people who've done well out of the current disruption.
Yeah. Next question is in relation to trunk payments in the restaurant trade, i.e. distribution of automatic service charge added to bills. Emma, is this part of the grant that they can claim back part of their earnings?
I'd have to come back to you on that one. I'm not actually sure.
Okay, we'll come back to you directly, and we'll find out the answer. And because it's whether it's deemed to be contractual and therefore recoverable. So again, we'll come back to you on that point, and we'll email you direct. Next question is, do we still run payroll as normal through our payroll software and submit this to HMRC as usual, in addition to submitting the furlough information on the portal that is going live on Monday? As far as we're aware, yes, you continue to run your payroll as normal. Your payroll software hopefully is being updated so you can determine what employees have been furloughed, and then it's separately you make a claim through the portal, which goes live hopefully on Monday, and hopefully won't crash with the millions of people trying to get on there at the same time. Any further questions from anybody else? Do you know how we claim back any SSP that has been paid? Again, presumably that's through the portal. Emma?
Yeah, we're hoping it's going to be through the same way, because it's funny, since the announcement, which was very early on in all this, it seems like about a year ago now,
Yes.
The announcement that the first 14 days of SSP could be claimed back. I've not heard much going on about how do we do that, because we're then assuming that it's all bundled into the same portal. We hope so anyway, because that's been a long time coming, really.
Okay. That comes to the end of the questions. I'm going to wrap it up here. If any of you got anything you want to ask specifically to any of us, please feel free, just drop us an email in. and let us know, and we can always come back to you directly. I want to thank Emma Fay and Chris Bentley for joining me on this webinar this morning. I hope you found it useful, and if you've got any further suggestions that you want to give us to run any further webinars, because ideally we want to do something once a week on this, then we will get something prepared for you. This will be up on the Harts YouTube channel later on today, and you will be able to get a link from our website as well. So thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning, and hope you have a safe weekend. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.